The hype levels of this chapter were insane. Oh my god, the lineup for this tournament is pretty hype, at least at certain points. And though I have my, let's say, hot take opinions here and there, which I will mention as I dive deeper into the review/breakdown, overall I think this is pretty hype in terms of matchups and potential, especially considering that this tournament is at least on a higher level than the Kengan Annihilation tournament. And that is to actually say that the fighters in the tournament are all of them, even the no-name, we've never seen them before, are all top tier fighters. Whereas in the Kengan Annihilation tournament, the levels between fighters was pretty iffy. But with that being said, let's just dive straight into the chapter called King of King. Of course, the chapter starts out with the fighters being introduced into the stage. The part that we were all curious about, who exactly is in this tournament, and the first reveal, or the first two reveals, are hype. However, the format of the reveals in the drafts is a little bit different, so it's gonna be a little bit confusing since I use the drafts for my breakdowns. But the first two people to be revealed are Gaolang and of course Jurota. We did know that these two were going to be in the tournament no matter what because they both qualified. Two characters that are seen as the strongest, of course. Gaolang is representing Purgatory and Jurota is actually representing the Kengan Association. Which brings us to the next two reveals, and that is Justin. Now, Justin is a new character, but again, keep in mind that this tournament is supposed to be highest level. So Justin is probably quite powerful, but of course we'll get to see when his match eventually comes. The next one, however, is the God of War, Gaolang. This caught me off guard, although not completely, mainly because we know Gaolang is not from the country of Japan, and so there was always a chance, considering how the Champions Tournament is actually a culmination of different underground fighting companies or whatever they are. Gaolang probably had a pretty good shot because he probably was in an underground fighting scene all on his own, not exactly in the Kengan Association. And so him being here, though it is a little bit surprising for some, it does make sense when you think about it just for like 5 seconds. But of course the next two reveals, and this was pretty surprising for me. The first reveal is Sakigake. Sakigake is a new character. Again, ain't got much to say about him. Like his character design though. But the person that really surprised me was Kano Agito. So Agito, he made it in after his loss to Jurota. Now he did say that he was going to have his rematch with Jurota eventually. And so Agito, post his fight against Jurota, has been working fairly hard. We did know that the Kengan Association had one more slot available for the Champions Tournament, and that of course certain people could straight up apply for that position if of course they wanted to get inside the tournament. We do know that Hatsumi was also being considered as well, Canada and Rito as well. It seems as though Agito has made it out ahead, and I was honestly thinking Kuroki would be here, but Agito is the second representative of the Kengan Association. Will he get his revenge match? Will he take another L? We will see in the future. Which brings us to our last two participants, and that is Ramon. Ramon, he's a new character of course, and he does look like JP. If you don't know, Daro did seem to actually tweet out a picture of JP, which is why I'm mentioning him. JP from Street Fighter 6. But other than that, we know next to nothing about him specifically. The last person is of course the monster Julius, and oh boy, Julius made it in And this one actually caught me by surprise. I didn't expect Julius to be here, although he is probably one of the strongest physically in the verse. But with all of that being said, all the fighters have been introduced, and oh boy, that's the whole roster. And Hatsumi is surprised at this and is like, man, I know almost half the people in this tournament. And of course, Yamashita does reply that, look, it is what it is. The Kengan Association is basically the highest level in the verse, it seems. And this is actually something that I wanted to talk about for a bit, because the fact that Kuroki isn't here speaks volumes about basically the state of underground fighting in the Kengan verse around the world. Because the current king of the Kengan matches is Kuroki Gensai. He's the big dog there. Similar in a sense to how Gaolang is the big dog in Purgatory. And so the fact that he isn't even here speaks volume, right? I've just said that of course all of these are probably high level fighters, and that will probably be the case. However, it seems as though Kengan Association, the Kengan matches are just built different. Of course, Yamashita did say that at like the beginning of the series that the Kengan Association matches are probably just the highest level there is, but this is something I did want to talk about for a bit. But of course, Hatsumi does also ask the question, did Julius and Kano or Gaolang just transfer out to other underground fighting arenas basically to get a spot? And the answer was yes from Yamashita. But Akiyama does ask a question on whether or not it's a good idea to actually host this, especially with the whole Shen Wulong thing, going on. And Yamashita actually answers her and says, well, yeah, we're at least hoping, that the strongest comes out of this tournament. Someone who could beat Shen Wulong potential, but also that they probably couldn't actually just stop the entire tournament. So the show must ultimately go on. And with that, we actually get the match setups. And oh man, I probably have to have another video of me just talking about the matchups and all this other stuff. But the fights that we actually have are pretty hype. I know people are hyped over Julius and Agito fighting, which we'll probably get into that. Like, that's probably gonna be the third we see. But my most hype fight is actually Gaolang versus Jurota. That to me is insane. I never thought, until I actually saw it, I never thought of how much I wanted this fight. A grappler versus just a straight up striker. But the other fight, of course, is Sakigake versus Justin, which again, wait and see when it comes to my opinion on that fight, because it could be that wild card type of situation where, well, we might get someone who's incredibly powerful from there, or someone that just doesn't matter. Like, it's literally, that's how wide the gap of prediction is when it comes to that fight. So I prefer waiting to see what happens. However, the fight that's also pretty interesting, and I think that this might be the most important fight in the tournament, is Gaolang versus Ramo, which might be the final fight of basically the first roundup of fights in the tournament. And with that, the first match actually just begins right here, right now, with, of course, Jurota versus Gaolang. And we get to see what's happening in the waiting area of Jurota, of course, and Carlos along with Liu have basically come to cheer on Jurota. And Jurota actually seems to appreciate this a lot, as he says, your well wishes will be my view. With, of course, after that, Medel talking about the fact that Jurota's approach to martial arts is probably the most pure or sincere approach that he has probably ever seen. And Liu sort of agrees with this and calls him the paragon of martial arts. While in this panel, this is insane, we see the sort of spirit of Meguro there, where it looks like just a straight up stand ability, and he's like, come, let's go, Meguro, like this thing is actually there. However, we transition over to, of course, Gaolang's side with Rama, and Rama, he's a simple man. He just says, go and win. That's all I want you to do. And of course, Gaolang is going to comply with that, which leads into the match itself. Oh boy, this is gonna be good. This fight, to me, is probably my most hyped fight out of all of the fights that I saw there. And we're just starting off with that. I have no idea who's going to win, to be completely honest. And oh boy, this is gonna be very interesting. This tournament is looking pretty good already. But that's it for the review and breakdown. I'll probably have a few other videos about the Champions Tournament and other topics that I have also been planning. But of course, don't forget to like and sub. And until next time, take it easy.